här på min sjätte besök. Jag tycker det är det största evenemanget i Europa.
La squadra della Ferrari è stata in testa alle man per molti anni, ma credo che le Ford quest'anno daranno loro delle difficoltà, eh?
Speed doesn't mean very much in this race.
No, it's endurance.
Yeah, you get a few headlines if you're the fastest in practice, but very seldom do you see the people that are fastest in practice get the checkered flag on Sunday afternoon.
Speed generates headlines, for obvious reasons. Since the invention of running in 1896, probably, humans have relentlessly pursued speed. It's the same reason that vehicles like the Bugatti Chiron and the Koenigsegg Agera exist. Unless you have a death wish, you'll never come close to touching their top speeds. So why build one? Just so Cousin Sal from Jersey can park one next to his Phoenix? This is why speed alone as a competitive measuring stick is actually rather crude. Endurance racing, like the 24 Hours of Le Mans, is about much more than just speed. It's about survival. You can make the biggest, most powerful engine you can muster, but if you melt your tires or your suspension fails after 5 laps, that burst of speed becomes worthless at best. You can fit bigger brakes onto your wheels, but if the driver can't keep their aggression in check, the results can be catastrophic. The desire to pursue one's vision can be found in all walks of life. For racing drivers, that desire is to win above all else. For leaders of the remnants of the second Neo-Zeon movement, however, that desire is to undermine the Earth Federation's power, its role in space, and to give space noise the ability to self-govern by revealing the contents of Laplace's box. So, basically the same thing.
You mustn't let mistakes weigh you down. Acknowledge them and take what you've learned to move on.
After likely lewd waifu enthusiast Full Frontal wrecks shop on several London Bell mobile suits, token teenage mech pilot protagonist Benager Lynx gets in a spat with risky Google search man. This was after Banana Boy's girlfriend tells him to run away, and never return, while she, an adolescent with minimal military experience, looks for a way to destroy the giant, priceless robot Beninja sat in once, which is both A, protected by space magic, and B, literally the key to her and her people's salvation. The spat is interrupted by Deguza Mackle, who announces that Banhammer's girlfriend is actually important to the plot and he probably shouldn't kill her yet. He neglects to mention, however, if he got a friends and family discount from Kim Jong-un's hairstylist. Probable lewd waifu enthusiast calls out Kim Jong-zeon on his bullshit and demands the keys to the Amazon locker that holds the mysteries of the universe. Bandana Pink's girlfriend confuses actual lewd waifu enthusiast with a plot device in Mobile Suit Gundam The Origin, and more fighting happens over the space Amazon locker. Eventually, Pajama Sphinx, an aggressively lewd waifu enthusiast, decides to have a chat at a nice desk and talk about a merger. Though in this case, Benager pulls an Enzo Ferrari and walks away from the negotiating table. Oh yeah, cars. Enzo Ferrari had no intention of entering the road car business when he formed Scuderia Ferrari in 1929. Instead, he and his team started off buying and repurposing Alfa Romeo racing cars for private racing drivers. The team's success made it easy for Alfa to withdraw its in-house team, allowing Ferrari to step in and take over its racing division. The guy Ferrari, not the car. We're not there yet. Anyway, 5 years later, Alfa Romeo decided that this was a silly idea and reformed their in-house team, with Ferrari as their leader. He then thought this was a silly idea and left the company a year later. After a 4-year restriction on using his name for branding purposes, Ferrari the person moved his new company, Auto Avio Costruzioni, to Maranello, where it got bombed a bunch during World War II and built it again with a road car division to help fund his crippling racing addiction. In case you were wondering, those cars were actually badged as Ferraris, and they've been built in the same city ever since. Fast forward to 1960, and it's becoming increasingly clear that, after more than 30 years, Enzo wants out. The company goes public as, and I'm going to butcher the Italian all to hell here, so bear with me, Società Esercizio Fabbriche Automobili e Corse. Sorry. And 2 years later, he met with his Menager Lynx, an American with ties to the automotive revolution, Hank the Deuce, Henry Ford II. Now let's flash forward 181-ish years, where Frontal and Barnacle Kinks are also discussing a possible merger. Frontal starts by talking about oppression of space people. Shinji adds that his deadbeat dad gave him the EVA to protect all of humanity, not just space people with questionable morals. Pornhub Category Man finds this very unlikely, unless his dad is Gendo Acardius Vist, who made an under-the-table deal with the space people for the robot a while back. He finally shows some respect by taking off his mask, and Hamtaro Winks realizes that he too killed a person during their battle. Frontal's second-in-command, Angelo McAsshole Pants, reminds Massager that he needs to follow gender stereotypes and man up. Before he leaves with the help of absolutely no one else, he asks the joke that's probably getting old at this point if he's Char Aznable. To which he replies, "I'll be whatever you want me to be." Menager looks at the man bemused and a little flattered before the man actually named full honest-to-God Frontal clarifies.
As I am now, I consider myself nothing more than a vessel. A vessel for the hopes of those abandoned in space, and for the ideals of Zeon that will light all our paths to freedom. So if that's what the people desire, then Char Aznable is who I will be. And that is the reason why I wear this mask.
Back in 60s time, Ford and Ferrari's conversation also featured a party reneging on a deal. HF2, as his friends call him, offered to buy out Ferrari's company for 16 million American dollars. That's 130 million American dollars in 2017 money. Don't say you never learned anything from this channel. Enzo accepted, and Ford the sequel flew out to Italy with his executive posse to put pen to paper. While Ford had in tow the equivalent of the Detroit Mafia behind him, Ferrari came into the meeting with himself and his lawyer, much to the surprise of Ford and his dude bros. Things were looking up, but as tends to happen with these things, there was one little clause that continued to get under Ferrari's skin. The sale would also turn over all control of Scuderia Ferrari to Ford. For Enzo, a man made from racing, this simply could not stand. Many accounts of this dispute talk of Enzo's fiery temper and colorful language, while Ford refused to relent on this single clause. Ferrari had had enough. He turned to his lawyer, said that he'd like to go get a bite to eat. Then the two men literally got up from the negotiating table and never came back. The deal was dead. Ferrari would not sell to Ford, humiliating the American executive who had flown halfway around the world to purchase a surefire Le Mans champion. Humiliation is an emotion I felt very strongly when building the full Bernard Martini, my first racing-inspired Gunpla. Not because of the work I did, mind you, although I do still have nightmares about that damn core fighter and those shoddy decals, but because it's a real grade. In my opinion, real grade Gundam kits are the ultimate modeler's models. And what I mean by this is that they're designed to challenge you as a builder as well as the designers making them in the first place. They push plastic model technology to the brink of what's possible. Sometimes it leads to awe-inspiring kits like the Astray Red Frame, the 00 Riser and the Strike Freedom that rival any master grade in detail and in some ways even surpass them. Because of the bleeding edge technology used to fashion the kits at an affordable price though, some results can be mixed. I talked at length about the core block on the full burner. A bi-weekly blood sacrifice is still required to this day to hold that block together, and fragility can be found throughout the real grade line. Though visually striking, the 00 Riser is more top-heavy than Brock Lesnar on stilts. The original real grade, the RX-78, obviously, had the first advanced MS joint frame, leading to loose connections, and the Zeta is perfect in every way. So what happens when you decide to purchase the most polarizing kit in Bandai's most polarizing Gundam line? Enter real grade number 23, Sinanju. In many ways, the real grade surpasses even its master grade and Burr-Ka counterparts. Spectacular detail with a high gloss finish that needs no paint to stand out in your collection, trust me. It's also the only version of the Sinanju with gold painted parts rather than stickers. Hatch gimmicks in the shoulder pads and moving joints on the backpack, it's a stunner. For me, anyway. The list of gripes people have with the real grade Sinanju is at least as long as the opening narration from each episode of Mobile Suit Gundam Unicorn Re-0096. The kit's waist is connected by a single peg with no real side guards. Because of this, many builders report loose waist joints that can cause the suit to lean to either side when loaded down with shields and rifles and things. The backpack, while not as heavy as the 00 Riser, rests all of its weight on the backplate of the Sinanju's torso, and again is held in with a single clip. Many builders attribute this to its tendency to fall over. I've even heard some people complain about the underside not being as well sized for action-based connections, even leading to damaged stands. Wanna know why this thing has sat in my backlog for almost a year? This kit is intimidating. As intimidating as a certain prancing horse at the start-finish line. I knew from the start that the Sinanju would make a great redo for my racing car-based Gundam plastic model kit project. It needs a better name, by the way. I'm thinking Formula Arms is... I don't know if that's a good name or not. Leave a comment with a better suggestion or tell me in Discord to my face. While I love the ultra high gloss red, it wasn't quite right for the look of a classic Ferrari racer. To replicate this, I used Tamiya flat red with a couple drops of flat yellow. Then top-coated the painted parts with Vallejo matte varnish. This gave the paint a semi-gloss look more reminiscent of racing cars from the early 60s. I also converted the black parts to white to better match the color scheme Ferrari used during these years at Le Mans. The next challenge is going to be the decals, which are on their way from Germany as I write this, but before then, I needed to build this thing. I heard all the horror stories, all the negative press, all the warnings of shoddy build quality, finickiness, and visions of the RG Zeta flashed before my eyes. Which is odd, considering the RG Zeta is one of the best kits ever made. So imagine my shock when, while looking for issues after building and painting over the course of over 20 hours, there weren't any. A lot more people these days are reporting less issues with their RG Sinanjus, and a lot of builders attribute this to better production runs after the initial release. But here's the thing. I purchased this, or rather my amazing fiance did, from Barnes & Noble when it first came out. This is an early run Sinanju. I've experienced none of the issues others are reporting. The waist is plenty sturdy on mine, Some people might attribute this to the paint I used, but I left the inner frame and the other gray parts untouched. The backpack is huge, sure, but I can pose it freestanding by giving the kit a proper pose rather than just having it stand there rigid. Bend the legs a little bit and you're fine. And since the underside has a standard peg insert for Bandai action bases and Tamashii stages, I'm not so sure that someone can break an action base using one for the Sinanju. When discussing the kit with other builders, I came to a conclusion as to why my Sinanju lacked the problems so many others have had. On average, I heard the build times between 6 and 8 hours for those that had issues, and 15 to 20 hours for those that didn't. This is a very scientific poll, by the way. I understand that some people like to crush a real grade build in a day. I tried it. It didn't go well. But this is a kit you have to take your time on. If you provided the attention to detail that a kit like this demands, you too can have a flawless experience with the real grade Sinanju. I do concede that this kit looks best on a stand, but not because of its perceived flaws. This is a Zeon kit. Zeon suits are designed for space noids, designed without the restraint of the ground beneath their feet. They're works of art in constant motion. That's why they need to be posed off the ground. It's their home. This is seriously my second favorite real grade I've built next to the Astray Red frame, and one of my favorite kits to date. I encourage all of you to go out there and check it out, even if it is a little more expensive than other real grades out there. Just don't leave the cashier hanging when you go to the hobby shop to buy your Badgunpla. I'll see you next time.